Firstly, happy month of May.
Thank you very much. What an amazing month. There's something really special about the month of May, and I don't think you get that in any other form of motorsport. I've experienced it at Le Mans in that build up and when everyone sort of arrives and you have that sort of week build up. But I think the month of May is special just because it's longer.
Explain to people why there's like two races before the actual race itself, along with a load of practices and all
Yeah.
the qualies and carb day and like all that in between.
Yeah, so this year was a bit of an anomaly because Barber fell into May, and ordinarily that wouldn't happen. So next year, with the way the calendar is, we will have a clear sort of focus on IMS with the whole month of May centered around what's going on there. Obviously, the second race that you're alluding to, the IMS road race that we've just had at the weekend, is just because I think we need something to break up the monotonous testing, as you just as you just touched on, and the sort of road course does that. It keeps the teams busy. It gives the fans an element of competition, and it's just weird seeing Indy cars going the wrong way down the front stretch at IMS. But now we've done those two races, Barber and IMS, and we're into the practice sessions, and this is really 6 hours of running. I mean, I think there's something like 11 to 13 practice sessions. So it's a an old fashioned way of going about making sure that you can get your car in an operating window. And it's unique in the sense that you will run over lots of different weather conditions, temperatures, wind variations, and you'll leave no stone unturned. These speedway cars that they'll run now, from today onwards, are purposely built. The top teams will have been building these chassis from the top of the year, from the end of last year. They have every single bit of friction resistant trick bit of equipment, the very best of the best from the teams, the manufacturers, everything is going into these special speedway cars. And that's why it was super unfortunate to see Sato kind of roll his car into a ball at turn one in the open test. But yeah, so much practice to sort of get our heads around. And it is hard. And they'll always say pit lane is your friend for the drivers, because actually not all of that running will be perfect. So whether or not you've got a handling imbalance, whether or not the temperatures are not quite in a healthy window, or the wind, the gusting, that kind of thing, not all of those conditions throughout these test sessions will be will be perfect. And there's a real temptation just to be out on the speedway. When you're in pit lane, you're twiddling your thumbs. You feel like you should be doing something, especially if other cars are out there. But sometimes pit lane's your friend, because you want to protect yourself, you want to protect your car, and you don't want to get lost. It's very easy to get lost in all of the data and the information. And 1 minute you're quick, 1 minute you're not. But the reason you're not could just be temperature, and then you make a change, and then you get, So it's a time for experience. Experience shows through, and keeping that level head.
Something that you just mentioned was the weather. Do we I know that the Americans always have the rain during the practices, especially last year to be exact.
It's forecast today to rain and tomorrow. Yeah, but I think later on in the afternoon, and it's pockets of rain. So the beauty of pockets of rain is actually it could just miss the speedway. So it's going to be really hard to predict. At least we haven't got that, you know, just total wet, rain delay or washout is the word I'm looking for.
With race day, in case it like let's say the rain does come, what for us UK fans, what should we do while we're waiting so many hours like we did last year, just to make sure we're
So
actually prepared to stay
you,
up till
you,
the early hours?
you're going to have three types of fans. You're going to have ones that watch cricket as well, so they'll be well versed on rain delays when it comes to cricket. You're going to have the hardened IMS 500 fans who know that Indy cars just can't run in the rain on the oval, so they'll be sort of well versed. And then you'll probably have a bit of the audience coming across from the Monaco Grand Prix like they did last year and thought, crikey, what the hell's going on? And watching those vehicles, the AMR cars with the huge jet engines on them drying the track. It's so formidable when you're actually there to hear them and to see them go past, and the impact they have in terms of drying the surface is phenomenal because it's such just think of the vast expanse of that sort of super speedway to get that dry. You can't even have one damp patch, like nada. So they do an incredible job to get it dry. So we've got it's not okay. Last year was hard on me because I'm sort of front of house and I'm trying to keep the show rolling and the fans engaged. But actually, it's a lot harder for Neil Wooding and Andrew, who's going to be producing this year, because they're in the gallery and they've got so much. And Neil's with Andrew's been doing it all this week. A lot of filler content. So previous sessions, last year's season, this year's season, last year's Indy 500. They've got so much built up around filling the air if it rains. And we've got whole teams standing by on Monday in case the Indy 500 doesn't happen on the Sunday and we got to roll over to the Monday and everyone's got to there's so much in the way of contingency just to and that's just Sky, never mind Fox, never mind everyone at IMS and the Penske Corporation and yeah, if it rains it's a disaster, and it's amazing how quickly people can turn it around and come back on the Monday and hopefully do it again.
Going back to the open test, for people who are watching it, explain why Sato was in the rookie and refresher orientation and not the actual veterans part of it.
Yeah, so obviously safety is really, really important, and they do not take any risk or leave anything to doubt around the speeds and the running on super speedway. So IndyCar, if you're not running a full season, if you haven't raced on an oval in that sort of period of time between last year's 500 and this year's 500, because you're not race sharp, because you've not been in that environment, they will deem it necessary for you just to have an orientation program where you will go through set speeds to build yourself back up to where you are. I mean, he's a multiple 500 winner. I mean, we've got TK doing it today, Tony Kanaan, between 2 and 4 local time today. You will have Tony Kanaan running his refresher laps. Now, this is a guy that knows IndyCar inside out. And, he's won on ovals before. He's the boss of McLaren, if you like. And he's there just because of the complications around Kyle Larson having to run the Coca-Cola 600 as well at Charlotte. So, yeah, listen, I think it's great because it gives the fans a chance to see how difficult it is. That these people can't just jump straight back in an Indy car and can't just be safe and can't just go and do the speeds that are required. 230 plus. So that's why the orientation program's there, and actually the rookie orientation program's even more substantial. So the speeds the cars are limited; they can't go any quicker than the speeds that race direction set for you, and you've got to go out and tick off every speed, and then you come back in, and then you've got to go out and tick off every speed. So It's really in depth. It's a good initiative.
Drivers' best day of their lives is obviously race day, but other than that, it's qualifying, especially bump day for drivers who are between um who are trying to get the last spot. Explain why that is so much pressure other than race day itself.
Yeah, and I think people allude to um, qualifying is actually the second biggest weekend in the IndyCar calendar, ahead of all the other races, because there are so many eyes on qualifying because you have that trepidation. So, it costs millions and millions of pounds to put an entry together to run the month of May and to try and make the show. And you only a set amount of cars for safety grounds are allowed to race when it comes to the grid and for the 500. And historically speaking, you've got more entrants than you've got grid slots for the race. So it's not been every year, but most years we have bump day where some people just aren't going to make the race. So imagine the excitement of putting a 500 program together. Imagine how hard it is in the current global economy to put sponsors together to make that happen and to massage that relationship and to have everyone there, have all your sponsors in the directly in their boxes and all the fans there. And then you might not even be making the show. So the pressure on your shoulders in terms of the weight of expectation from the partners, from the team, from your investors, from your sponsors, to actually you as a human being a competitor, you don't want to be the one not in the show, right? You don't want to be the one that is going home because in a competition environment, no one likes losing. So it, God, the pressure, and Graham Rahal's already been talking about it to one or two people this week because he was a huge name. We've had some big fish, some IndyCar regulars that haven't made the show in years gone by, and for me, that trepidation. Sport needs emotion and it needs trepidation, and there is nothing more in the modern era of motorsport more nerve-wracking than watching those go and run in that bump day shootout, because that is just the very worst, and you can just see it etched on everyone's faces. No one wants to go home. And we saw Nolan Siegel wrecked the car last year. He went full gas into 1 and 2, 230 miles an hour, everything on one color, just to try and make the show, and fenced it. And the respect that he got for being that brave to be able to do that, he earned the stripes in terms of the respect of everyone up and down pit lane, the drivers, the teams, and all the fans last year. And we will wait and see as to who it is this year. Historically speaking, the big fish, RLL, they found themselves at the wrong end of the grid, but they look pretty good. They look pretty good this year in the open test. So, Sato was arguably quickest until he hit the wall at turn one. Will that derail him? He's got a whole new car now, and it's not going to be as quick as the one he's rolled into a ball of snot. So we shall see what happens. But is it possible to predict who it'll be?
Anything can happen with these drivers,
Yeah,
especially with what happened with Rahal a couple of years ago
yeah,
and the emotion he had after not being in it.
yeah. And you're going to see teams not quite be in the performance window. So if your car's not got the speed, you're holding your foot wide open for 4 laps. There's nothing you can do about that. But you're also going to have people that make mistakes during this week and the weekend where they hit the wall. And then it's a race against time, because when you rebuild the car, sometimes it's not the same. Sometimes it loses some speed. And that confidence, momentum is everything over this next 2 weeks. And, you hear the Formula One drivers, some of them saying, I would never do Indy because of the risks, because of what it takes. These drivers there is fear there. And when you do hit the wall, it knocks your confidence. You are not quite as quick straight after because we're human beings, right? And you feel that you don't quite want to take the risk that you took uh, the time you crashed again. And that's a very um, natural scenario at the 500.
One thing that I've seen is obviously drivers for the qualifying picking out a number for their positions on how they are picked to go on the lap twice. Why is that? Other than if they don't do that, the obviously driver's standings is like the other option to use. Why do they?
Yeah. So how it works with qualifying is you draw a starting slot, and everyone has a chance. The whole field will run once, and when you run once, it's a four lap average. 4 lap average, yeah. So then when everyone has run once, it starts to get a little bit more complicated. You have two lanes in pit lane. You have the fast lane, and then you have the conventional lane, and everyone can queue up and go again. The problem with queuing up to go again is it's exactly that. It's a queue. So there's limited amount of running in qualifying. So by the time you get to the end of the day, if you're 15th in line, you're not going to have enough time to run again. So you have the option to pull your qualifying time and go in the fast lane. That comes with a big risk because if you've qualified well and you're in the show, you're now going to pull your time and anything could happen on the next run. You could crash, the engine could blow, it could break, anything could happen. But you'll go very close to the front of the queue in the fast lane because not many people take that risk. And it tends to be the ones that are right on the bubble in terms of making the show that tend to be in the fast lane. So, and then we go into the second day of qualifying as well, where you have certain positions in the field locked out from day one, and then the shootout for pole and that kind of stuff, and then bump day. So Will Buxton, T Bell, James Hinchcliffe, Georgia, Jamie Little, Kevin Lee, they'll be doing their best to keep everyone up to speed as to how the scenarios play out. But it's once the whole field has run once, then things start to get really interesting.
And hopefully we'll hear Louis. We'll talk about Louis Foster and how they went to
Yeah,
the same school again.
yeah, from Odiham in Hampshire. He's been doing really well this year. It's just not come to fruition in terms of overall results, but his single lap pace has been really good, and he's super brave. And RLL hopefully have a better car this year. So, I mean, for any rookie, the 500 is because it's not just about all of the things that we've talked about, the pressure making the show, the fear, the speeds. It's about just the sheer size of how big this event is. In terms of bums on seats, it's the most watched sporting event anywhere in the world. You're going to have close to 400,000 people there. And that whole cathedral of speed just comes alive. I mean, it is just wild. And then you've got the snake pit, you got the media, like every single step you take, you're mobbed. Just the scrutiny, just everything that comes with that adds to the occasion, makes it harder for rookies to. Pato Awards talked about it this year. They said, what's the one thing you've learned taking yourself into the month of May? And he said to say no. And they're like, what do you mean by that? And he said, I need to say no to people. I need to just get in the zone, not be distracted, have me time, as well as fulfilling all my media responsibilities, keeping the fans happy, that kind of stuff, because he just runs out of energy. It's too distracting.
he was so close of getting the actual 500 last year, but Joseph just got him on the last two corners.
And that, do you know what? It was so deserving that Joseph did that in terms of, I mean, got the win. Sorry, because of what he did. You know, to make that pass was basically win it or bin it, and at those speeds was incredible. It's just so unlucky that Pato had to. You know, in that case, there's a winner and a loser, and it was
Mm.
just, you know, Joseph Newgarden fully deserved that for the move that he pulled. You just got to feel sorry for Pato because he's like the lovable rogue that, you know, everyone wants to see do well, and he just was so upset afterwards, and you really felt for him.
You can't say no to Pato because Pato is Pato, and I think
Yeah.
when he got second, I think his heart just like sunk. But then when Joseph went into the crowd to celebrate his win for the second, if I remember,
The 3 feet, yeah. Second, two on the bounce.
that was just like, yep, that was not just for him and his family, but like for the fans that are following him.
Yeah, it was wild. Do you know what? That was one of the best finishes to 500 that I can remember. And he's very much Captain America, isn't he, in terms of his persona and how they play it out. So he's like a superhero. So it was quite cool that he did that and then going in the crowd. But yeah, Pato, he's like a puppy that you can never get mad, even if you walk in and they've torn the kitchen apart. You know what I mean? You can never get mad with Pato. And to see his face when he had those puppy eyes when it didn't go his way, you really, your heart went out to him.